All right, we should be live. We should be streaming. If you're seeing this on your feeds, let us know that you can see myself and Chris here on the screen. Got some really good content for you today. We're going to be recording a live podcast and diving deep into Chris's process. So I'm actually really excited to actually bring Chris on to talk about his coaching specifically because, Chris, you're actually the first coach that I'm bringing on who specializes in working with people who are plant-based only,
Mm.
which is going to be interesting for the audience. So I think whether people are working with plant-based clients or not, or whether they believe in the plant-based way of life or not, I think it's going to be useful. I think it's going to be insightful. And you've built an amazing business. Obviously, you're doing this full time. You've been very successful at it. You've got a group of close to 2,000 members, which is amazing, and a great show of success. When it comes to actually building an online business, because there's a lot to navigate. There's a lot to do to find your kind of space in the market, and I think you've done that really well with focusing specifically on people who are plant-based. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to unpack your program, what that looks like, how you deliver results, and hopefully everyone listening is going to get some value from this. So, Chris, before we get into your program, before we get into the program, I'm curious, right? As well as I'm sure other people are curious, is how do you decide specifically to go plant-based yourself? Because my brother is plant-based and he has his own reasons for doing it. And I realize people have their own reasons for doing it, and different reasons is what I'm noticing. And I'd be curious to know like your reason for going down that path specifically. Let's start there before we then move into, okay, what are your delivery?
Ooh, straight in with the easy questions, Alex. Straight in there with the simple questions. That's a big question. And what you're saying about people having different reasons is totally right. Some people come in from the ethical sort of animal welfare standpoint. Some people care about the environment or the CO2 from certain industries. Other people come at it from the health perspective. For me, it was a pretty broad brush. It all interested me. I was just looking for any angle to improve my health, wellness, fitness, my longevity, live ethically, live environmentally. And for me, it just caught my attention. Yeah, across the board.
Interesting. And again, like it's different for everyone, right? Like I speak to people who have different reasons, more leaning towards the environmental aspects and just leaning towards the health maybe aspect of it. What did your family and friends say when you started going down that path? Did you see any criticism or resistance?
That's a really good question. I've got to thank my big sister because she was a bit of a trailblazer. And I was vegetarian from when I was 10 because I stayed with her for a bit. She was vegetarian. And then it was a gradual evolution. Everybody sort of in the family slowly went vegetarian, then everybody went vegan after that. And 99% of my family are plant-based now. So there's no arguments at Christmas. It's lovely. No arguments around the dining table. Yeah.
Again, like interesting, right? It's kind of like you become your environment, the people that you're exposed to during your childhood, and then the people that you're exposing to maybe during their earlier years or their receptive years when it comes to health, nutrition, environment. You're rubbing off on other people too, and so it's very interesting. Like I think people can look at it and have their own assumptions without really knowing the full picture of why someone makes that decision to be plant-based. And I think it's a very interesting topic. And if there's anyone that's listening to this right now on any of the social media platforms, I'd be interested to know if you're either plant-based, and if you want to get involved in the conversation, what do you think about this plant-based way of living? Let us know in the comments. I'm sure Chris would be interested to hear your thoughts and your opinions, because I imagine as someone who's public like you do get opinions and you do get people maybe not agreeing or criticizing your approach or the way that you do things. Could you speak to that for a second if that has occurred?
Yeah, it's really interesting because over with the length of time I've been plant-based, it's nearly 30 years since I was like 10. I'm approaching 40 now. And I went through vegetarian, all the different stages, eventually cut out dairy and whatnot. I've seen the evolution in people's attitudes, and people who are perhaps a little bit quick to judge, perhaps, for whatever their reasons are. it's interesting that like several years later, they're now in my inbox asking questions about it and showing curiosity and like, oh, I've seen the results you're getting. Like, tell me a little bit more. And for me, that is very satisfying because regardless of my views, it's nice to just see people being curious and having that conversation. And for me, it's all about just that dialogue on the topic and helping people out. And I learn every time I have that conversation as well. So that's big for me.
So when it comes to like your online business, let's shift gears a little bit and want to make this relevant to anyone that's listening, whether they're plant-based or not. Appreciate you sharing and being open about your kind of decisions with that. But if we talk about like shifting into the online space, into delivering online programs, was it just like an obvious choice for you to go down the plant-based route, or did you have to really like consider that? Was it obvious?
Do you know what? I don't even have to think about that answer because it cropped up in conversation recently. And I was talking about my marketing approach when I first got into the fitness space, which I've been coaching for 8 years. Just over 8 years. And I, interestingly, started off online and I wanted to put out a load of marketing, essentially help people with their nutrition. And it didn't go to plan. So then I went and did the sort of boot camp thing and, went into a gym and did classes. And my first wave of marketing that went out for in-person training, I was really keen on obstacle course racing. I've done a load of Tough Mudders. I've done that sort of thing. And it just did not attract the sort of people I'd hoped for at the time. It was a completely different demographic. All the people that got back in touch with me were people that were interested in being plant-based, whether they sort of seen me in the gym, whether they knew a reputation locally. So it was a surprise for me. It's not what I chose at first. And then I realized actually people are resonating with me because I'm talking from lived experience rather than trying to do something which is just like a vague interest. I'm not an obstacle course racer. It's just something I do a little bit of, whereas I live veganism and being plant-based full time.
When you made that kind of decision to move in that direction, then what did you feel about that decision? Did you feel like, okay, this is the right decision, I'm fully behind it? Or was there maybe a different feeling of, oh, is this the right path? Should I be going down this route? What if I maybe rule people out and miss out on opportunity or clients? Like, what was the thought process?
50-50, isn't it? I think when you first start in the industry, you'd be silly to say no to experience and you'd be silly to say no to opportunities to help people. And, especially when you first start, whether it's online or whether it's on the gym floor, you take what you can get, let's be honest. You're still learning, you're still finding your feet, and that capital helps you then to focus. So that was very much my reason at first. And when I started to niche down, I was nervous. I was a little bit like, is there enough vegans to like support this industry, to support my business? Is there going to be enough interest? Am I saying no to massive opportunity elsewhere by focusing? And I realized actually there's a turning point within your business, isn't there, whereby niching down actually benefits you. And that turning point is different for everybody. There's obviously nuances and circumstances to that. But for me, when it occurred, it just felt right. And I was like, no, now full pelt, and even niching down even more now to just working with women. And then niching down specifically in the last year or so to just working with vegan women 40 to 55, sort of that perimenopausal bracket. And gradually over the years, that niche has just got more and more narrow, but deeper,
Again, like a very interesting thing that you shared there about almost going from wide to narrow. And I think it's a great way to approach it. I say this to the clients that I work with right now is when you first start your online business, you don't have to be super niche because there's tons of people in your network right now that fit into various different niches, male, female, they could be busy professionals, as people like to call them, shift workers, past colleagues, people that you went to school with. And so if you niche down too much too soon, then you kind of rule out some easy opportunity to earn and learn, bring people on, create some momentum, build some systems, kind of build your confidence around coaching and the online virtual space. And then over time, you start to see some patterns, so to speak, when you notice who you're attracting, like you mentioned. You start attracting certain types of people. And then over time, you notice you attract an even more defined group of people. Yeah. And then it's just like this organic process of niching down versus I think where people can go wrong when they start their online business is they go too narrow too quick, and then they give up before they've got momentum and brought in clients because they assume it doesn't work. When actually, if they'd approached it in the same way, just going organically through that niching process, then the outcome would have been much different.
Key point there. Yeah, you said doing it too quickly. And I think that I've seen people make that mistake and go from, try and go from 0 to 60 a little bit quicker than perhaps their systems and stuff had the, the support for them to do that. So yeah, 100% agree.
In terms of your delivery, can we dive into that and look at like what that looks like? And I think the question that I have on my mind, and hopefully this is useful for the audience, is what are the big differences when it comes to working with a plant-based client versus just your typical client? Now, I know it's going to be nutritional based, but is there any other big differences? And can you just speak to that so that we can get some context?
It depends 100% why that person has gone plant-based or vegan, because there are obviously sub-demographics we spoke about. People have got into it for environmental reasons. People have got into it for health reasons or ethical reasons. So there are almost nuances between those almost like sub-niches, I guess. But for me, the main thing is they respect and appreciate that open, ethical approach. You know, they love that sort of human connection because that's how they then live their lives. And I think that's one of the first things that stood out to me, especially like in the last couple of years. There's been a huge shift towards that just open and honest conversation. They don't respond well to template messages, things like that. They see right through it.
Interesting.
So
okay.
That was a big one for me.
What else?
What else? Interesting one I came across recently, which seems to be I'm not sure if this is like a brief trend or if this is something that's growing in popularity, but people wanting to buy their equipment from perhaps less well-known brands and sort of supporting local industry, wanting to support local as opposed to wanting to support like your big multinational companies. So we had to rewrite a load of our processes where we'd point people to like well-known internet retailers to order their equipment. And a lot of people coming back saying, I prefer to not use those. Is there anyone local where I can get this equipment from? Little things like that. It was quite interesting to go through.
It is a little nuance, right? Which is why I asked, and I'm just being naive because you don't know these things until you start coaching those clients and working with a lot of people. Then you start to see the patterns and the nuances that then help you adjust what you're suggesting or offering or where you're directing people when it comes to, like you said, where to pick up kettlebells or where to get bands or where to buy their nutrition supplements from, and it's an interesting thing to consider, but only things you're going to notice if you're receptive to input from the clients.
I think you mentioned supplements. I'll talk to that for a second. There was, if you go back 10 years, the range of foodstuffs you could buy and the actual availability of vegan options and the amount of like, let's just say like protein powders you could buy, for example, was half a dozen. Now there's hundreds. So that we almost have this like mass confusion in the market as well. And people are responding really well to people's or coaches like myself simplifying that message. They're coming into me completely confused, like, almost this like decision paralysis. I've got so many options. What's the best one? And they appreciate just being focused on the right channel.
So you predominantly help your clients with weight loss. Would you say that's the main problem you're fixing? Yeah.
That's the main problem they come to me for. Yeah.
Got it. And then you potentially give them other things that they need once they've got what they want, which is the weight loss. With the weight loss, what do you see as kind of like the biggest needle movers in your program to getting those clients results? Like what do you notice really has the biggest impact on your clients?
Protein, increasing the protein amount to a healthy amount, bringing them in line with sort of, the recommendations. I know you've got an international audience over here. We've got our NHS, our health service, bringing them in line with the recommendations for like minimum amount of protein, maximum amount of carbs, things like that. So just really sort of like helping them refocus their nutrition. And then we look at a lot of lifestyle choices, making sure their sleep's a little bit higher, making sure they're not then compensating for lack of energy with loads of caffeine and having that hormonal impact. So we just look at a really simplified approach to exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. That's our sort of 4 modules.
Got it. And in terms of the length, is it a 12-week process that you're taking people through at this stage?
Yeah, 12 weeks. We've got some legacy clients that have sort of been in the program and just loved it and stuck with us for years. Really keen on giving people a prolonged service. We don't sort of just boot them out after 12 weeks. But some people, I think it's actually because of the way we position ourselves. We don't position ourselves as a quick fix alternative. Mm-hmm. So we don't really want to ever push like 30-day programs or anything like that. We've done little challenges, obviously, to give people a taste of our service, but we really like that long-term approach, building relationships and helping people, get into the idea of actually you can stay with us and we're going to have tiers of service for you to go through.
I want to come back to that in a second because it's interesting to unpack that, but I want to go and circle back to what you mentioned about protein, just as like one of the key things you mentioned. And I noticed this with like online fitness coaches that I'm working with. They're trying to find the perfect order, so to speak, of when they provide clients with a certain piece of advice or information. And it's almost like this constant reassortment of when do I give them this and when do I give them that. It'd be interesting to hear what you've decided on when it comes to that protein element of education with your clients, and when do you introduce it? Is it very early on, in the middle, towards the end? I imagine it's probably front loaded, but
it's quite front loaded. But we have the way that we sort of onboard our clients and help them to get started in the program, we set the expectation that we're not go from day one. We spend the first couple of weeks doing like a bit of an exploration as to where they are, so that any decisions that we make, we're really sort of big on the science. Any decisions are based on where they are at the moment. I'd never just pick a number out of thin air and say, right, that's your prescription. So we spend a week or two actually ascertaining where they are. And you never know, they might have nailed that and their focus needs to be elsewhere.
Got it. So it's like very early on, but you're assessing based on where the client is at. When it comes to introducing that. How many like topics would you say you typically cover with your clients? Because you've not mentioned training at all yet.
Training is in like exercise? No.
Yeah.
No, we do.
Yeah, you do as well, but it might be interesting to touch on that, and then the type of topics that you do introduce before we kind of move forward, just so people get a general feel, because it can sound like what you do is very nutritional based, but you touched on behavior and habit based. And also there's a training element, so to give people kind of like a broader overview, like what is going into the experience of working with you.
That's a really good question, because we have what we call our 4 pillars. So nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, and mindset. And we tend to go through them in that order. So the reason being, we find the biggest needle movers are going to be within people's eating patterns. Even before I niche down into veganism and plant-based sort of lifestyle, I found that was the case. That whole adage, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. That's universal, isn't it? So we always focus on that, and then the specifics within that are going to be 9 times out of 10, especially a new vegan who doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to be low on that protein. So we'll hone in on that. After that, we tend to focus a lot on the training, and we help people have this rounded approach to the training. We don't just power lift, we don't just run, we don't just do plyometrics. We look at building a balanced program, so they've got functionality in day to day. We're not working with like pro athletes. We're working with menopausal women. They want to lose weight, they want to focus, and they want to feel like empowered and strong in themselves. That they're not out to, beat a world record 10-second sprint over 100 meters. It's like, they just want to be functional day to day.
And do you favor a certain like app for delivering your workouts? Because I think online fitness coaches are spoiled for choice
Such a
these
big question,
days.
isn't it? You get
Yeah,
that
like
quite
which
a
one do
lot.
you use? Yeah, my clients ask me all the time, like what app should I use? And obviously there's lots of choices out there on the marketplace and it's down to preference, but I'd be curious to know which one you landed on. Because again, it's preference, isn't it? A lot of them do a lot of the
Yeah.
same thing, but it's preference. What do you do for training?
We've got three, just to sort of, while we're touching on software, we've got three things that we use.
Mm-hmm.
We use Google Sheets for our tracking, our client
Mm-hmm.
tracking. We use Stripe for our payments, which I think is just really safe and universal and international. We've got clients outside of the UK, it works. And from an actual training perspective, we utilize My PT Hub. I think it's great at what it does. The new version's taking a little bit of getting used to, but it's clean, it works, it's efficient, and the clients enjoy it. The fact there's videos on there, the fact that you can then upload your own videos as well. It's not perfect, nothing is, but it's efficient and it gets the job done. It's nice.
Nice, man. Another question I've got for you, and I think we'll end on this one, or I may ask you one more after this one that will be relevant to everyone that's listening, regardless of where they're at in the journey or whether they're plant-based or not. Just a little check though, if anyone's listening and you've got at least one piece of value from this, if you're listening back on the podcast, just give it a head nod. But if you're listening on the social media right now, maybe that's Facebook, maybe that's LinkedIn, just give it a like. Let us know that you've got some value from this. And also it's going to push this further. And that's going to allow me to then bring on more great guests like Chris that's going to be able to provide great information for you when it comes to building your online fitness business. So just give it a thumbs up if you've got some value from this so far. I wanted to ask you, why do you think your clients stick around and stay with you? Because you mentioned legacy clients. Why do you think they stick around?
I'd like to be able to take full credit, but I don't think I can. I think it's down to the community. I think it's down to them being able to support each other. Obviously, I try and provide a curriculum. I provide loads of value, written on my to-do list every single day. In permanent marker, it's not on my whiteboard, it's in permanent, is over-deliver. That's one of my mantras. I try and over-deliver on everything that I do. It's sort of fundamental to me being happy in of myself. But beyond that, there's a community. Everyone really rallies around each other. They support each other. We've got like real good sort of proprietary language. We're a bit of a tribe. And I think that when people have had a taste of that, they don't really want to leave. They become a member of that sort of tribe, that community, that crew, that squad. And they don't, it's quite a nice little team we've got.
Nice. So the big thing I'm hearing from there, based on what you said, is the community feel, the community aspect, kind of similar to what you'd have in a boot camp experience or a gym where there's community built around the place where you go to train and get fit. Yeah. Does that bring another idea?
I'm going to elaborate on that for a second. It's one of the benefits of having a community. Like, let's speak to your community for a second. You work incredibly hard. You work incredibly long hours, but you also need the odd day off. When you take a day off with a good community behind you, you know that they're going to be able to support each other, answer each other's questions to a point, and there is this like nice vibe whereby not just value comes from you, value comes from your community, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great point. And if I were to look at why my clients would want to stick around, it would be for the same reason, is like we've built a very positive environment where we reward contribution and interaction and insight and positivity. We actually do have prizes and awards for those things specifically to kind of reinforce the community and just make it a good place to be, especially whether you're a fitness client on a fitness journey or whether you're a business client on a business journey. Sometimes it can be quite lonely doing it on your own. And when you have this community around you, supporting you, encouraging you, and being available when you're maybe not progressing as quickly as you wanted, it keeps you going, and it's a big aspect to fitness. It's a big aspect to business, which is why I think your clients are sticking around, and I think why people like to be in masterminds and communities where they can mix with other people on the same journey. And I think it's a very powerful thing.
Valid point. I had someone reach out to me just today, and they used lots of that same language, and it was like I want to be surrounded by people that are like-minded and going through the same thing that I'm going through. And I think that's one of the benefits of having a community whereby people are on a similar wavelength or a similar goal or a similar track, because they then feel all supported. And it's not like, having an OAP mixing with an 18-year-old bodybuilder, and they've got different challenges in life, aren't they? They might get on, they might be polite, they might all be sort of aligned to a point, but they've got different challenges and nuances. And having a community that's all aligned, it's powerful. And you've done a great job with that, Alex.
Appreciate it, man. I want to finish with one question that I think will be relevant to everyone. If you were getting started online again, let's just imagine you were starting from scratch. What would be some advice to yourself? And this is going to be advice to anyone thinking of getting started online. Like, what would be the advice to yourself? What would you say to yourself if you could go back in time? What words of encouragement, what advice would you give? Like, what would you say to the earlier version of Chris who hadn't started online?
Can I give two?
You can give two. Like, we're not gonna hold back the value here. So if you've got some gold to share, I'm sure everyone's going to want to hear it.
I could give advice all day. I like to talk. We've had loads of conversations off camera, and I can just go all day. But I'm going to try and limit it to two, just for respecting everybody's time. I think the first and foremost, I regret leaving it several years before finding a good mentor and mastermind. Having that, like, I can work it out approach, being a little bit stubborn, a little bit sort of, I can figure it out. Man, wasted years doing that. Making that investment and just jumping into having some coaching, working with yourself. Previously, you just have this surge of information and support and progress within your own sort of goals. Number one, I left it far too late. I wasted years. Secondly, would be taking that action approach, that imperfect action approach, and just not talking myself out of things. That little bit of artwork that you're doing, that poster, that, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it out and have this rhythm and this consistency. It's more important to be regular and to show up and to try your best than for every single nuance to be perfect, because it just doesn't exist. Perfect doesn't exist.
Love it. Really, really love it. And appreciate you coming on. I know you've got a busy schedule. I know you've got a lot of clients.
It's been a pleasure though. I could stay and talk all day, and hopefully I'll have a chance to come back. But it's been fun, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Very grateful to have you on, and hopefully everyone who is listening got something from this, got some value. If you did and you're listening on social media, just give it a thumbs up. Let Chris know that you appreciated anything that he shared with you today. If you had an aha moment, or you learned something that you didn't know, or remembered something that you forgot, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and I'll keep bringing you some awesome guests like Chris to share some value. All right, we'll wrap things up. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers, Alex.